Today we're going to talk about the barrier model. Now, in this presentation I'm going to say that I'm the VP of Operations for a global group, and I'm in charge of this particular region. And in my region I have a number of platforms, and I also have an onshore processing plant. And I'm given some images here that help me identify which plant relates to which description. Now, the barrier model forms part of an asset integrity toolkit, and it's demonstrating to me very quickly and visually how fit for purpose are we. And I need to understand this a little bit more, so I'm looking down my list, and I can see at a site level that obviously I've got some news around these two sites. I have a list of my 9 barriers, and the ones that I'm very interested in are the prevention barriers, because I can see on location 1 that I have a real problem here, because 3 in a row prevention barriers are in a red state. That means those barriers, those systems behind it, the safety critical elements that are represented, are not as effectively operating. And there's potential for an incident to get through all 3 barriers. And obviously I'm okay as far as some of my protection barriers concerned, but this is something that is concerning me. Well, one thing that is good though is that we have got mitigation in place, and this mitigation means that we are still okay to operate, and that fit for service comment. And we can demonstrate that we are okay to operate because we've done risk assessment around the hazards that we've identified within here. And so it's very quickly, I can talk now to my process safety lead engineer who's going to come in, and we can talk about that, and we can compare, say, where we were a week ago to now, and that gives us a bit of a comparison point when we're talking. Now, one thing I am aware of is that if you think about the 7 deadly signs of, and one of the top ones is that there's no bad news. And so I don't view this as necessarily a KPI. I don't see the red here because somebody's not doing their job. I see red there because I'm probably running on a fairly old asset. I know this asset here is over 30 years old, and we're just dealing with lots of changing events within the environment. And so red is not a bad measure. Red just means that we've got to keep a vigilant eye on what it is that we're doing, because obviously as we build up more residual effort, then that's what's going to be the concern, is are we okay to operate, and can we demonstrate that we are okay to operate. So now I was talking to my colleague who was on Cogen. We've just realized data from the optimizer team that we need to increase production on his site to catch up. So looking at how he's operating, he's actually in pretty good shape, and so I don't think that's going to be too much for him. But now imagine you're the LIM. So now I've come into the same barrier model, and I've opened this up, and now I'm actually the offshore installation manager. And I've picked up my report. I've just chatted to the VP of Operations, and he does want to increase production. Now, one of the things I'm a little bit concerned about is one of my mechanical engineers came to me and he said, well, we've got this problem in process that relates to process containment. I've put a risk assessment in, I've got the guys together, we've looked at it, and I'd like you to take a closer look. So straight away I can see process containment, initial residual is amber. I can see a bit of the information about what he's talking about a failure from shutdown on the first stage separator, causing overpressure on the downstream separator. So that is a concern, and I want to know more about it. I click on process containment. Now what that does, within one click, I've got the rundown. I've got an operational risk here that I can see, and I've also got a process safety related risk. Now this is really relating to process safety that he wants me to investigate. So what I can do is I can just take a quick look at the risk record itself. Yep, I can see it's pending approval, and I can see it relates to my process containment. It's in the processing area, so on the deck level I can identify with that. I click on the record, and I can see here that yes, he has actually marked it as a high severity. That means as far as the team is concerned, I can see the team here. that they've rated this with a very high likelihood and a potential that it can kill or hurt over 5 people. And the likelihood says it's very likely, which means within the industry that we've had this event at least once in our own organisation, and it certainly has happened around the world. So that gives me a high risk ranking, which really we need to mitigate against. And I can see here that what they're planning on doing is doing a blowdown on a weekly interval. Now I'm fine with that. I can see the risk assessment, I can see the team, and I can see the information. So I'm going to approve that record. So to approve that record, it's not going to change the colours of my barrier because the record has been identified by my team. But what I will do is follow the whole system is in place here which is role based, and based on my user coming into this system, it shows me all the pending actions for all my approval. Now I'm the OIM, so hence I need to approve this record, and I'm the only one, the way the system is set up for me, is that I'm the only one that can approve these risk records into their final point. So I'll just go ahead and do that now. So I go to approval, I click approve, and I hit save. And that's all I have to do at that point. I close down the record and notice that my pending actions is now gone, and I close down the risk application. So that means soon that will actually read approved, and then that will be a live record. The other thing that when I was talking to my engineer, and he said, well, on the shutdown systems we've also got another issue that we're keeping a close eye on. Now I can see here I've just switched over from my process containment to my shutdown system very simply by just clicking on the shutdown system box. And without having to do too much, I can see that we've got also another case here with possible blowback risk on a compressor. Now I'm really thankful that we have, when we set this record up, part of our mitigation control was to identify through our PI system a tag that's monitoring that situation. And I know that whilst part of our control is that whilst that element is monitoring it, that we can actually safely say, yeah, we've got some good control in place, and we can reduce our likelihood down so that we can operate an alarm, which is quite okay. So if I return back to my barrier, and that's how this is going to look for today. But now just imagine what happens if that actual piece of kit that we're relying on for our mitigation measure actually stops working, and how would that affect the barrier, and what will that do? So what I'd like to do now is I'm going to flip over to a PI system that we've integrated to, and I'm going to simulate what would happen if that particular piece of that tag actually was to stop working. Now, with the PI system integration, it is actually all online, is that within a moment the PI system has registered the fact that the element has gone down, and as such that means that our initial and our residual risk now are actually the same. So what we're saying is we're not going to take any credit on the mitigation control. We're also going to see, well, it was that particular tag number that we saw in the PI system. We can see the mitigation control that has been actually compromised, and basically that record now has been reset. And so the way that's identified on the barrier model is that you'll see visually a flashing residual barrier, because that particular barrier now has been compromised. So when we see this, I mean, instantly the reaction is okay. We need to either choose. We have a couple of options. We can reassess the risk assessment, and we can put it back for approval. We can go after the raise a corrective work order and fix what's going on with that particular piece of equipment. Now all of that can happen, and what I will do now to stop the flashing light is I'm going to go and open that record, and you can see here again my initial and residual are the same because that's what the software has done. And I'm going to go back into my hazard and controls, and I'm going to need to choose a new element. Okay, so it's been cleared out, and what I do have to do is reset the likelihood. Now again, this allows me to either say no, I've got no mitigation in control, or I'm going to actually put mitigation and control, which is going to make it unlikely now with some additional thoughts. So I can save that record, and once I've saved that record, that will take the flashing light away, and I'll process this now because what you'll see is it'll go into a review workflow, and then it gets endorsed, reapproved, and it's another live record again. So that's actually how we manage the integration from the Pi system live feed into the barrier model itself. So what will happen in about a minute's time is that actually will come off the flashing light register and return to an amber state, because we're saying we're considering the record now back in with a different control element. So while we wait for that to happen, let's have a look at the other tab on here, which is the reliability tab. Now, we integrate into work management systems, and that data is pulled in automatically, and that supplies us with our backlog figures that you can see here, broken down by their performance standard. As well as that, we show reliability information. The reliability data, and by the way, you can just see here that flag has just been cleaned up by the barrier model process. Now, the information you see here coming back to the reliability tab is that you'll see that there is a failed and fixed percentage over 12 months, and what we're looking for here is to see how reliable are the assets that relate to these particular elements in these systems. And so when we're thinking about the risk elements, and we're thinking about our structural integrity, for example, or process containment, any one of these we can look across the work order churn that's gone on, and we can identify, well, just exactly where do we sit as far as the reliability aspects of our work management. And it's to be taken into consideration when you're looking at the risk profile, and you're looking at the severity, and you're looking at the likelihood, because you can then be influenced a little bit by these figures when you're thinking about likelihood. Now that is the barrier model, and that concludes the presentation for today. Thank you for your time.